So in this video, I'm going to talk about how Armenians are the original Aryans, or Indo-Europeans. Now before we begin, I just want to say one thing. The word Aryan has nothing to do with racism or nationalism, and it doesn't mean blonde and blue-eyed or anything like that. Aryan is the actual name of the Indo-European ethnic groups and languages. It's just that historians prefer to use the word Indo-European instead of Aryan. However, I think it's more accurate to use the word Aryan than Indo-European. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to use the word Aryan instead of Indo-European. But before we talk about the etymology of the word Aryan and such, I'm going to be talking about how Armenians are the original Aryans, or Indo-European. First, let's talk about the language. So basically, if you study the Armenian petroglyphs around 6000 BC and 7000 BC, you can find that the Armenian petroglyphs represent the time when the Armenian language became a fully developed language. And by 5000 BC is when the Armenians began using the petroglyphs as a form of writing. However, despite the fact that the petroglyphs become more improved and become a form of writing, the symbols remain consistent and remain the same. If you study the petroglyphs from 7000 BC to 12,000 BC, around that time is when the Armenian language began to develop. And by the time of 6000, 7000 BC is when the Armenian language had become a fully developed language. And of course, by 5000 BC is when the Armenians began using the petroglyphs as a form of writing. And of course, the Armenian petroglyphs evolved into the Armenian hieroglyphs, which then evolved into the Armenian syllabics, which evolved into the Armenian alphabet. Now here's an important fact. The Armenian alphabet was not invented in 405 AD. The oldest form of the Armenian alphabet dates back 1730 BC. It was later modified and reintroduced in 405 AD. Now another important aspect of Armenian writing is the swastika. Now the swastika is the ancient Aryan symbol of the sun, and this symbol has been used by many civilizations for hundreds and thousands of years. The oldest swastikas can be found in Armenia. Now the swastika has been used throughout Armenian culture. In fact, the symbol which represents the wheel of eternity in Armenian culture is based on the swastika. And the Armenian alphabet that Armenians use today is also based on the swastika. Now let's talk about genetics. Now there have been many genetic studies on the Armenians and the Armenian DNA. Now genetics have proven that Armenians originate in the Armenian highlands. And many genetic studies have been done on archaeological sites and skeletal remains and burial grounds that were found in archaeological sites that date back 4,000, 5,000 years and such. Many of these genetic studies have proven that modern day Armenians are direct descendants of the people that lived in Armenia around 4,000, 5,000, even 7,000 years ago. And not only that, but genetic studies have also proven that Armenians have been the same people since ancient times. There's little to no difference between Armenians of today and Armenians 4,000, 5,000 years ago. In fact, there was a recent genetic study that has been done on our Armenian DNA, and it has revealed that Armenians have a genetic continuity going back almost 8,000 years. Now, if you study the genetic makeup of the Armenians and you look at the DNA haplogroups which make up the genetic makeup of the Armenians, the largest and main haplogroup of the Armenians is R1b. Now, R1b is one of the Aryan or Indo-European DNA haplogroups. The other one is R1a. Now, there's a difference between R1b and R1a. R1b is classified as Armenian, Germanic, Italo-Celtic, and I believe it's also classified as Hittite and Tocharian. R1a is classified as Greek, Albanian, Balto-Slavic, and Indo-Iranian. Now, the type of R1b that Armenians have is R1b1a2a, which dates back 8,000 years, making Armenians the oldest carriers of R1b. Now, let's look at ancient writings. Now, in the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, it says that the first inhabitants of Britain were from Armenia. Now, some people say, oh, it's a mistake, they meant to say Armorica or something like that. Well, if that's the case, why didn't they correct the mistake when they were writing it? There might be some truth to this, because in Devonshire, England, there are prehistoric stone monuments and stone circles that are exactly like the ones found in Armenia. In the old Germanic poem Annalid, it says that the Bavarians came from Armenia, land of Ararat. Now, if you look at the ancient Sumerian writings, they talk about how their forefathers, came from Aratta. They say that they originate from a place called Aratta, and Aratta is the Sumerian name for Ararat. And you can even find the Armenian language in the Sumerian language, much like how you can find the Armenian language in the Basque language. Now, let's talk about the etymology of the word Aryan. Now, the etymology of Aryan originates from the Armenian language. Basically, Ar is the ancient Armenian god of the sun and creation, and Yan, which you can find in Armenian last names, Yan basically, means offspring of, or descendant of, or son of, or belonging to. So Aryan pretty much means offspring of Ar, the ancient Armenian god of the sun. Now, Armenians refer to themselves as Hai or Hayer, because the name Hai comes from the ancient Armenian god Hai. Now, there are many variations of Ar. Ar can also mean son, creator, or god. And of course, there are many Armenian words in the Armenian language that consist of variations of Ar. For example, Ararat, like Mount Ararat, the etymology of Ararat Armenian, basically it means piece of creation. Ar means creation, and Hat means peace, or peace of. And of course, the Sumerian name for Ararat is Aratta. Now, fortunately, some historians think that Aratta is this ancient civilization in Ukraine, Iran, but obviously they are not paying attention to Sumerian writings, and they're not doing a proper research in Armenian history, because Aratta is the Sumerian name for Ararat, and they talk about the mountainous region and the two rivers, which is Armenian highlands and Mesopotamia, and the fact that you can find the Armenian language, the Sumerian language. So basically, this is just one of the few, if not one of the many examples of how Armenian history has been falsified, rewritten, hidden, and ignored since the genocide for political reasons. Another example of this is the Urartian theory. Here's the thing. Armenia and Urartu is the same thing. Urartu is just the Assyrian name for Ararat. The fact that Armenia is mentioned by other ancient civilizations before it was referred to as Urartu. For example, the Akkadians mentioned Armenia in 2300 BC, and they referred to it as Armani or Armanum. The Hittites mentioned Armenia around 1400-1500 BC, and they referred to it as Hyassa. The Egyptians mentioned Armenia in 1446 BC, and they referred to it as Ermana. Also, genetics have already proven that Armenians originate in the Armenian highlands, not the Balkans or Greece or anywhere else. And linguistically speaking, the only way you could actually read and understand Urartian is using the Armenian language, because what we know of the so-called language Urartian is pretty much the Armenian language. So it's pretty much the same thing. Anyway, thank you for watching this video.